up? What's up? We're looking for justice, y'all. Oh, we got a good one for you today, y'all. Part 2. Not on the Grind TV, Funk from the Front Seat is proud and honored to have back with us the amazing Linda Scheider and the very, very awesome Jen Vanderputten is with us today. North Carolina, where you at? DC, say yeah. New York, Long Island, turn it up. Jersey, you heard? Delaware, Pennsylvania, very important Pennsylvania, y'all got to get that right. What's up, Philly? Dr. Brookenstein in the house. Texas, we got you. Georgia, Florida, we got you. South Carolina, we got you. Virginia, Funk from the Front Seat is upon you. We're looking for justice, y'all. We got Linda and Jen with us today. My producer, Mr. Mark Lee, will also be jumping in. Stand tall, y'all. What's up? Brenda in Ohio, I got you. What's up, Boosie? What's up, Patty? And my special friend, Lou Reed, down here in North Carolina, I got you. Thanks for the pizza. JP, you know I love you. Funk from the Front Seat, y'all. Get hyped. We got to vote this week, all right? Y'all got to make that happen. California, you in the house? North and South Dakota, Utah. Maryland, where you at? Detroit. P-Funk Radio. Minneapolis. Canada. All around the world for the funk. Sally, we got you on the West Coast. Funk from the Front Seat. Woo! Lots to chop up today, y'all. Turn it up. Hawaii. Samoan doing the Humpty Hump. Humpty Hump. Tokyo. Young Haseyo. Japan. China. Germany. Italy. What's up, DJ Cocolito? Thanks for playing my stuff. Elizabeth in Ireland. I got you, boo. Justice. And I don't mean just us. Justice. Come on, United States. We better than this. Funk from the Front Seat. 9 on the Grind TV. Woo! Make up your mind. We ain't got much time, y'all. I got you. Carmen in Australia, I got you. Penny Solstice in Germany, I got you. Africa, Dubai, Egypt, I got you. Oh, we got you around the world. Funk from the Front Seat. India, what's up, Ed Kid? I got you. Funk from the Front Seat, y'all. Woo! Feeling good today. Some of y'all ain't clapping. Oh, we ain't gonna waste no time. We're gonna get this show started right now. Welcome to Funk from the Front Seat, 9 on the Grind TV. Our special guest today in part 2 of this 2-part series about the country, the world, the state of affairs. Let me tell you something. United we stand, divided we fall. We have Linda Scheider with us today. We have the amazing Jen with two N's. Vander putting on with us today. Mr. Mark Lee, our producer's on today. So y'all stay active on the chat line. Please join us. You can go back and watch this show. They're all on YouTube. They're all stored this beautiful Saturday. Without further ado, Mark, let's bring these beautiful ladies on the show and let's get it started. Ha! What up? What up? What up?
No, I think you had it right the first time. It's just Jen with one N.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I did have it right there. I don't know why I have two on my phone. Hi, Linda.
Hey, what's up? Hi, Jen.
How you guys doing?
I'm good, and you?
I'm in there.
Hey, that's what's up. That's what's up.
So before we
it's so nice to meet you face to face. Didn't get a chance to see you last week. Nice to see you, girl.
I was telling Zach I was like cleaning the house. I hadn't even taken a shower yet. I'm like, I'm not going to show my face on here.
I said the same thing, Linda, when we was warming up before. I said, "Oh, I get to see you now." You know.
Yeah,
you know. Beautiful thing.
Yes, indeed.
Before we get started, like, of course, we got so much to finish and try to wrap this stuff up today. But you know, Linda, give us a little bit of background, and then Jen, you can give us a little background, just a little bit about, you know, who you are and you know what you're about a little bit. So for those of you just tuning in that really don't know you well, you know what I mean?
Okay, well, with politics, I started dealing with high school with SNCC, also in college. But like I said, I got into the music business kind of by back door. I met George and them when I was a flight attendant, and when I started working for this production company in DC, we started booking them, and I met Gary, and we eventually hooked up and got married. I started writing and singing with P-Funk even before we got married, which was great because I always thought they were such an awesome band. To be a part of it was just unbelievable to me, you know. Yeah. For George to give me a shot and Gary to kind of help me because we used to write together a lot. I'd get an idea and he'd help me finish it. And this is how we rolled. We did that for years. So that's where, and like I said, recently I've been doing more writing, trying to get some children's stories published, and a screenplay I wrote, trying to get some interest in Hollywood. So that's what I've been doing the past year or so, just trying to pump up some of my other ideas.
Okay, that's what's up. Jen?
Yeah, so I am a software engineer by trade, and a writer. Hopefully that's going to be my second career. That's what I'm working toward as well. So I was really excited to hear that you're writing, Linda.
Yes.
So best of luck. Yeah. Keep in touch.
Same to you.
Same to you. Yeah.
Hard to. I need an agent. I haven't found a literary agent to help me push some of my stuff. And that's really what I've been kind of looking for recently. Somebody to represent me and get this stuff off the ground. So I wish you the same luck. Hope you find somebody that gives you a shot as well.
Yeah, and then I've actually connected with a lot of authors who are published. So, like, the whole agent and querying thing, it's a
that's the issue.
Long journey. You can't give up on it.
If they have like credentials, they can get the door open a lot faster than going cold by yourself. I found.
Yeah. My area is science fiction and fantasy that I write in because I'm like a nerd. I play D&D and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And one of my writing mentors is actually an editor at Bain Books, which does a lot of science fiction. They do say in fantasy as well. But they're based here in North Carolina. And he holds, like once a month, he holds like a writer's sort of coffee and talk kind of thing at a bookstore over in Raleigh. And he's been encouraging me to submit to a contest, a very well-known contest within the science fiction fantasy community called Writers of the Future. And so that's my current goal is, he said, I want you to submit a story every quarter until you win, because it's one winner per quarter, and out of the winners from each quarter is selected a winner at the end of the year for an even higher prize. But it's something that can help you make that career, get those credentials, get your foot in the door. They only accept from people who are not
professional,
like published, professional. Yeah, because if you actually, they tell you if your story doesn't work for them, shop it around, and if you get it published, then you pro out. They call it. You can't supply, go to the contest anymore. But that's okay because now you've got that credential. That's your next step up anyway. But I think it's great that they're giving people who are in that pro space yet that sort of that space carved out for them for that. And it's well known, like really big names in the industry are the judges and things like that are involved with it. So,
Wow. Okay.
and
I
it's free.
submitted my
It's free.
script to a couple of contests and got very good feedback. The only thing they told me was to take out the names of the songs I was using because of licensing issues. But they said the story was great. I've had other independent film companies say that the budget, 3 million or more, they couldn't do it because of the budget issues. So I know there's interest. I just have to find the right slot, you know. It's a
That's the way it is in
process.
publishing. Just finding that right match, that right agent, that right
Yes.
publisher.
Yes.
When you just connect, and then magic happens. So
Yes,
that is
yes.
true. So let me ask you guys before we get started. I just want to acknowledge any birthdays out there or any anniversaries out there. Or if somebody had somebody in their family that transitioned on, know that we care. Know that we always flash the suicide hotline 988 number. So if you have any issues like that, or you know somebody, always reach out. Because one thing I do know is that people look well on the outside, but you never know what's going on with them on the inside. So my message to everybody today, besides peace, love, and harmony, is just be kind, especially during this election season. Everybody going to be at each other's throats anyway. Everybody's feeling stress, PTSD, et cetera, et cetera. But just try to take that extra second to be kind. You don't need to road rage if somebody cut you off at the light. You don't need to go crazy if you can't be the first one on the line at the supermarket and all that other stuff that goes with that. So everybody out there watching that's going to watch or come back on and watch whatever, just remember, try to be kind, man, because we're all under a lot of stress and we don't need to punch down. Also, it's National Alzheimer's Month. It's National Native American Heritage Month. So, you know, we acknowledge those things as well. And I know there's a few that I forgot. I think is another one when it comes to women and children being abused, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, politics. We're going to dive right in. All right. And again, these opinions are the opinions of myself, Mr. Mark Lee, and these two ladies. It's not StreamYard's opinion, not Facebook, not YouTube, not Twitter. It's not on any platforms. It's not their opinion. It's just our opinions about what's going on. All right. And gentlemen, start with you. It seems that this country is in a place where we lack discipline. We always want our kids to look up at us. Watch what we do. Linda, too. Watch what we do. We're trying to set the example. But as adults, from what I can see, we've been lacking a lot of discipline and kindness when it comes to hearing other people. And I think I mentioned this to you before, Jen and Linda. We've talked about this. Sometimes as human beings, we hear just for our opinion. And when we don't hear our opinion, we don't hear. You just talking at me and I'm talking to you. So why do you think human beings around the world have gotten to this place where we lack discipline to support each other?
You know, there's probably... Sorry. Okay. There's never any one, one reason, right? Most problems have a multitude of reasons. The way I've always noticed a pattern, I think I'm not the only one. I think I've heard a lot of people talk about how social media has changed how we interact with each other. And I think because it started out very, it still is very heavily, you're behind the screen and it's hard to see that other person as a human. Unless you're seeing them, and through video, it's a little better, but there's something about being face to face and in person with someone that really changes how you interact with them. But we've now got a culture that has been, I think, created as a result of that social media phenomenon, the result of that sort of putting distance between us as humans. And now I think that culture has settled in, and I think we're going to have to do a lot to shake it off. I think it's going to take a lot of mindfulness and a lot of work. And, there's a lot of work to be done on top of all the work we already had to do for all our social ills in our history. Yeah. So it's just added another problem to the pile, because I know the social media has been used to make really, connect people and make strides in social justice. But I think it's also been perhaps not the origination, but definitely a big wedge in that pushing us further polarized apart. And those who are not polarized are just scared to speak. I think they're scared to say anything because you'll be misinterpreted, because you'll be interpreted in one extreme way or another, or both. Sometimes even both sides will think you're against them. Um, and so you're just afraid of being misunderstood. And so I think those of us who are still in that reasonable space and want to connect are afraid to.
Yeah. Linda?
I think a lot of it comes from our insecurities, our personal insecurities, and it's so much easier to vent on Facebook or the internet because you're not face to face with somebody who could have another opinion. You can voice your opinion as negative as it could be, and not have any kind of like interaction with or feedback. People are going to see what you're talking about. They're going to react to it in a certain way, but when you're talking to someone face to face, it's kind of hard to hide your feelings. Your face is going to tell what you're really thinking, which is going to give the person you're speaking to another perspective. Speaking into the vacuum of the internet, you can say anything you want to say, do whatever you want to do, and there's no repercussions for it.
And then you can
Yeah,
just
you're right
block
about
anyone
that.
who you don't like,
You
who
can just
disagrees
vent.
with you.
You can vent.
It's
Or,
hard to block someone when they're standing in front of you.
Yeah. It's almost like we're a victim of our own success
And
because
technology.
during the Barack era, social media was used in such a way to help push him over the top twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
when I guess the powers that didn't really want that person in said, listen, they successfully did it, but we're going to successfully tear it all down with social media. So in a way, it's a weird kind of thing because, of course, the last gentleman that was in there, is gearing up to run again.
Oh
And
yes.
his buddy Elon Musk, as we know, just purchased Twitter. So we're gonna
I
get
just
into that later. But y'all
I
keep
dumped
that in the
my
back of
account.
your head.
I took the app off my phone.
Keep
After
that.
you bought it, I'm done. I don't want
Yo,
Twitter.
I swear I was gonna delete it today on the
I
show, but I'm
certainly
saving
did.
it until after election. So next week I'll come on, delete Twitter. I'm off that thing, and I never use it anyway. But I'm
I don't
off of
either.
it. Yeah,
Very
I'm off of
seldom.
it. Linda, I'm gonna let you jump in here because we were talking during the week about some things, right? And let's start at the basic heart of it. And again, we're hanging out with Jen Vanderputten and Linda Scheider and Mr. Mark Luby joining us. We now have to have security at the polls to watch the security.
At the polls. I mean, for people to be sitting at the mail-in ballots areas with guns and masks on, intimidating people just trying to throw their vote in the mailbox. This is where our country is. I think next week is going to give us a real eye opener into where we really stand right now. What is really more important to these people? To let the negative right take over this country and scare everybody. People are leaving the country now. They say there's mass numbers of Americans that are moving to other countries because they don't like where we're going. And I've been in PTSD since 2016. Ever since that man took the White House, every day there was some kind of insanity on the news about something he was doing or something his people were doing, which kind of kept me up at night sometimes. And I think if we don't kind of correct where we're going, the next 4 years or for the next 8 years, we might be in serious trouble. And I fear for the country. I feel for my family. I feel for other people that don't agree with where this country is going, to have no say and not be able to fix it.
I have a question for you, Linda. When you're talking about the people leaving the country, this is a phenomenon I hadn't heard of, but I'm not surprised by.
I was watching NBC yesterday, and they were talking about the mass number of Americans who have decided to leave and go to other countries to live. One
Is
of my
it
best
skewed
friends,
one political way or another, or
I
is it
think it
sort of
has
like
a lot
equal?
to do with it. I think they're afraid of where this country is headed and what they have seen over the past 6 years. And they're kind of uncomfortable enough that they decided to go someplace else and try it another place, another
So
space.
is it mostly liberal, on the liberal side
I
of
would
things
imagine
that are
so. I
fleeing?
would think so.
Yeah, because I myself have had just feelings of fear for the safety of my children growing up in this
Yes.
country. My
Yes.
husband's father grew up in the Netherlands, and he had to relinquish his citizenship in order to become a citizen here. But that's changed since then. There are some ways you can get it back, but because of his relationship, because he's a son, but because dad had to relinquish it, I think we'd have to go through some extra hoops. But we actually seriously have been talking about, like, if we have to flee, have a plan, because we're so
Mm-hmm.
scared of that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
what about the people who don't have the resources or the connections to do that? And that's what keeps me saying, stay and try to make a difference. No matter how scared I am, and I'm trying to teach my sons that, but at the same time, I'm like, am I being a bad parent, not protecting them? Or am I, it's also their decision. I make sure they know it's your decision how much you want to fight or not. And if you feel that you're not safe somewhere and you have to go somewhere else, you go somewhere else.
Doing
But
a podcast. Just drop it.
I think that, hey, welcome, Mr. Mark Lee. How are you? My
Doing
producer and
good.
everything. I think that when it comes to fleeing the country, I know even though I'm divorced, but my ex and I talked about this. She got cousins in Canada. I said, listen, we don't have to get married again and none of that stuff. I said, if y'all go to Canada, I'm going. Ain't no doubt about it, because I'm gonna be in the same place where my kids are gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm in the same roof or not, don't matter. Because we had thought about that plan, Linda and Jen. And for those of you joining us, just tuning in, Mr. Mark Lee, a producer, Funk for the Front Seat, and many other shows, is joining us today. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate all you guys. And, please stay active on the chat and go back and watch this show. It's very important. But we had thought about that plan because now that we're in a state of, as George would say, mental diarrhea, talking shit a mile a minute, it's like we don't know what the powers that be have in store for us. Before even, and I'm a staunch Democrat, I'm a liberal, but even when George Bush and Reagan and all of them was in there, yes, it was jacked up, but at least I could lay my head down at night. I may didn't agree with them, but I didn't ever go out and say, hey, Ronald Reagan didn't win. George Bush, he didn't win. He cheated. We never did that. So now we're at a place where we can't even accept as a society wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's
yeah,
dangerous. This is dangerous.
and that they
You
were
know, it's
willing to do something to their own person, uh, uh, who was,
Actual
you know,
physical attacks. Yes. And
on their own
threats.
guy if he dared to do his job and validate the election. They were threatening their own people. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like,
And he's still out there, acting like Trump is his best friend. He's still going to rallies and pumping up their stuff.
so
And
the
it's
guy
like,
was
you
telling
should be
people
one
to
of the
go.
main persons to turn and say, look, this guy was trying to get me killed. Why would I keep on supporting him?
And you know
That
what,
might
though?
put a damper on the friendship.
That's right. And you know what I noticed, though? His wife is not with him, because I know
I
his
wouldn't
wife is
blame her.
pissed. She's not with him. She's
I don't
like,
blame her
listen,
for not being there. Why would you
right.
support someone that's trying to kill your husband?
Amen. Amen. Mark, jump in there, bro.
a couple of things that y'all were saying that crossed my mind. One, I know some people that are actually moving out of country. Actually, a good friend of mine, Billy Graham, not the evangelist, has already moved to Bali. So he's already left the country and he's moved to Bali, and he's definitely looking to possibly move to somewhere else. I know some other people that have looked at some of the South American countries as possible places that they might want to go to, whether that's Costa Rica, or whether that's Honduras or Colombia, or a number of other places that folks are exploring. So as y'all was speaking, I was speaking of some folks that I already know are exploring that, including some of the African nations, because I know some people that have been looking at places like Kenya and some folks like that. Even Ghana has had some efforts to bring people back to what is our homeland for some folks, and all in that space. So that's definitely a conversation that a lot of people have been having and have been very interested in having. But on the flip side of that, and I'd love to hear what Linda and Jen have to say about this, I've also heard some people say that if we get what we think we're going to get, which is this red scare and this red wave that'll come with the Republicans winning, that it'll create gridlock. And I've heard some people try to tell me that gridlock is good. I don't know how gridlock can be
I
good.
heard that too.
You don't accomplish
I don't get
anything.
that
So I'm
either.
trying to figure out how it can be good.
Well, a friend of mine, her son has just moved his family to Portugal. And she's thinking about following him over there. And her sister and her husband are also thinking, because it's a beautiful place. The cost of living is very reasonable. And if you didn't have like financial resources, that might be a good shot to go someplace where you can maybe live a little bit more comfortably with less money involved. I just think that when we have to go to those kind of extremes, we are in a serious country that's kind of, it's scary. Like I said, I've had PTSD since 2016, watching that man every day doing something insane or something nasty that had serious repercussions. I've had enough.
You and me both.
I'm
Jen?
done.
And
You know, it's like,
the people that are coming, crawling out from under their rocks because
yes,
he gives them the
gave them a
permission to
platform.
do so.
Gave them a
And it's like,
platform.
there's always going to be these people, but keeping them under their rocks and keeping them in check is the way it has to be. But it's like they have permission, and that permission has not been shut down, even though he's out of office, because it's just,
I mean, when they go to the FBI
rolling.
with guns to shoot FBI agents, not expecting to walk into that building and maybe get blasted, and was able to actually go in there and threaten everybody. That's kind of like where we're at now, where the things that were normal are not normal anymore. It's like abnormal and scary. I mean, it's really frightening to me to think what might happen in a couple of weeks with this country flipping like that. What we have to look forward to. It's not going to be a pretty picture.
Yeah, I would agree. And I believe that, when Jen had mentioned, like, let's try to stay and fight it. I'm with that, Jen. I got you. I got your back. I just want to know, we have so many holes in this dam that we got to plug. It's going to take all of us together to do it. And if we can't even listen, and they can't listen, and we can't listen, then that's part of the problem. I think that we need more shows like this where people could come on and have a difference of opinion. And I always invite Republicans. I had people on that were gun owners far right. Now, I don't own a gun. I'm not mad at the gun thing, but I don't personally own a gun. It's not my thing. But, if it has to be, it has to be. But I want to have an open conversation at the table, because I think it's very important that the progress that we have made, not for Black or minorities, but as human beings and for women, right? I don't think that's a Republican or Democratic thing. I think that's a humanitarian thing. Your thoughts?
You want to go, Jen?
I've heard. It's funny because I felt when I was growing up, as a woman, I definitely knew that, and I figured out pretty quickly how differently I was treated. I wasn't. I mean, I even had a college, not a professor, but someone who, the TAs, the guys who are grad students, tell me, like, why are you even bothering doing a math degree? You'll never be as good as a man. I gave him an earful, and I told him, I said you get one shot. That's your one shot. You ever say anything like that again? If I ever see that if you grade my papers unfairly, if you do anything unfair, you target me in any way, I'm going straight to, the offices and to the authorities. And I'm letting them know, your attitude and what you said. So you really need to turn that attitude around, at least in practice. If I can't change your mind, then you must at least practice equality if you can't think equality.
My biggest issue was when I was working in the corporate world, constantly getting sexual harassment. And if I went to someone to complain about it, I was let go. It never got
I had a boy.
I felt comfortable, and that kind of turned me off about that whole atmosphere.
That's one of the reasons why I've not gone back to corporate America. I've got my own business, and I'm just trying to build that. And I have been saying since Obama was elected, I was saying back then, that I believe small and medium-sized businesses, not the big corporations, is what's going to turn the country around, because you're putting that power back into everyday hands, people who have to do good by their community, because it will destroy their business and their livelihood if they don't do right by their community.
Yeah.
And there's real accountability there, just because you are there living side by side with your customers and your clients.
And then you hear about people, gay couples going to a bakery asking for a wedding cake and then refusing to do it because they're gay. I mean, and one of the things Clarence Thomas, I understand, is planning to do is to reverse affirmative action, the gender situation where same-sex people can get married. Those are two of his other pet peeves, and he's getting ready to try to take to the Supreme Court and reverse. Everything's going backwards. MAGA.
Yeah.
They want
And
It
everything
is.
like
It
1950.
is.
Women have to be subservient to their husbands and stay home and raise the kids and not go to work, and can't have an abortion if they're in a situation where they don't want the child. All kind of things are just going backwards. We're going backwards to the
Yeah.
50s again.
Because I
It's
felt
not a
like when I
great
was growing
atmosphere,
up.
especially for Black people.
Now, did you feel like as a woman, I felt that as I was growing up, things were actually getting better. Like I felt that like the majority of people had their eyes and their hearts on progress. And I
Mhm.
knew it wasn't going to be like all fixed in one generation because it never is changed generational. But I felt like there was like majority of people who were looking toward the right horizon, the right future ultimately, and it was just a matter of time, and we were all just sort of slowly working toward it in the best way we could.
Mhm.
And now from your perspective as a Black woman, I'd be interested, did you feel that there was progress being made, or do you feel like it's still like it was even stagnant then?
I can tell you, when I was working with Pan Am, one of my co flight attendant, a good friend, was from South Africa. We had a trip to Frankfurt, Germany, and we're walking through the terminal to go to get on our flight to come home, and a German technician, mechanic or something, walked past us and said, "Ah, niggers," and spit at us. We got back to New York and told our forces supervisor what had happened, and all she said was, "Gee, I'm so sorry that happened, but what am I supposed to do about it?" And my friend from South Africa, she quit. That she'd only been with the company like maybe 3 months. She quit the next day. She said, after living in Johannesburg and suffering apartheid, if I'm working for a company and this is how I'm going to be respected, I'm done. She quit. I stayed a little bit longer, but it got to the point where it just didn't feel comfortable anymore. I had a man on my flight spit coffee in my face because he was pouring liquor in his coffee cup, and I caught him. So he threw the hot coffee on me. I was so tempted to grab him and shake him, but I had to keep it chill and walk away and just
Mhm.
decide not to work his area anymore. Those are things that kind of made me uncomfortable about my Blackness, my femininity,
Mhm.
between that sexual harassment and everything else I was going through. I didn't feel comfortable until I got into the music business, where it was like your talent speaks for itself. You're going to
Amen.
go forward
Amen.
if you're good. If not, you won't. And you don't have so much of a racial or feminine. Well, women get the casting couch. I have to say, back up on that. That
Yeah.
still happens, where you have to you have to swallow a lot of crap to get ahead. And if you're brave
Mhm.
enough to say no, you might not get a career out of it, but at least you have your self-respect.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And it's funny. And the reason why I brought that question up, and again, we're hanging out with Linda Scheider, amazing, beautiful queen, another amazing, beautiful queen, Jen Vanderputten, and Mr. Mark Lee. And for all you people out there that's watching Funk from the Front Seat, every Saturday, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm your host, number 9. Like, I say this because I don't, and you guys are women, so obviously you could tell me, I don't understand why women want to vote for that particular set of people when their rights, they're basically voting against their own
Your own.
interests.
Mm-hmm.
So we need
Yep.
to have this roundtable again in about a month or two and bring women on from that side of the aisle, because I need somebody to look me in my eye and tell me, why are you voting against your own interests? A woman's body is her body. What she does with it, she does with it. My personal opinion about it, I agree that Roe v. Wade was there for a reason. It was put in place. Some very smart people thought about it and said, listen, we can't have it just one way anymore. The country is a melting pot now. That's why I didn't agree with everything Obama did. He screwed me on the healthcare, but you know what? I saw his vision. I understood what he was doing,
At least he had a
bringing the
vision.
country together.
he knew what he could or could not get done while he was in office, and he got something done, a step forward, rather
Yeah, he
than
did.
saying all or nothing, because you have to sometimes say I will take a step forward instead. And I think that we have a lot of all or nothing attitude on both our extremes, left and right, in this country right now. And I don't blame a lot of people on the left. I'm on the left. I'm like solidly liberal, and I understand why people are, because they're tired of fighting that fight generation after generation, and feeling like it's going too slowly. And then like I experienced just when things started looking like, hey, people are actually starting to wake up and realize, yeah, this is the right way to move in general. And we could find, ways to make it happen that, that works one step at a time. And it just slid right back down that hill, just
Well, the
slipped and
ERA, when
slid.
was incepted, it kind of helped women get a little bit more of a toehold into equality. But it seems like between that, the Black Lives Matter, and this abortion issue, we all come out when we have an issue. But I wonder if it transfers to the voting booth. Because
Yeah.
why would Republicans be so strong right now with everything they have on the table that they've done and are intending to do? Why would you support them, especially as a woman, like you said, when our birthrights are in danger, where we
Yeah, I
can't
think
control our own bodies anymore? That's kind of scary that women especially, are actually going for this and supporting it. I don't
And
get
it's
it.
a man that's telling you that. That's the crazy part.
pardon me. Well, I've got a lot of right wingers in my family, like half and half, just like the country. And
Okay.
the people who are on the right in my family, a lot of the women are. So what I've noticed is there's a lot of misinformation on that side. So it's, when we talk about the ways that, restricting abortion, how and the ways they're restricting it too. Some of these states are making it so restrictive that women are going to die, and the women and the baby are going to die, and then you're going to have no more children from that,
Mhm.
from her, and you've lost her. And they don't seem to like they from our point of view on the left. We're like, why didn't you care about that? You don't care about her life. But from what I've heard, there's just a lot of ignorance and misinformation. But some of it willful, some of it just people staying in the dark because of the environment, the circles they're in. So a lot of them don't think that's going to happen. They really legitimately don't think that these deaths, even though we have actual deaths that have happened as a result of these things. They're always like they'll latch onto something because that's that confirmation bias, that Dunning-Kruger effects and all these kind of things.
The
Y'all get in
Kool-Aid.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we
drinking
all
that
have
Trump
it.
page.
We all get entrenched and dig our heels in with what we believe, and it's hard for us to change our minds. As powerful as the human brain is, we are still very emotional creatures. And they just don't believe these things are going to happen. They believe
There's
a
a
lot of
Republican candidate running in Virginia right now who is actually
yeah,
on TV saying women don't get pregnant from rape.
yeah.
How could they possibly get pregnant when someone rapes them? And that's her campaign mantra, you know, to
And
be
there's
that ignorant
people.
and have a platform like that. It's insane.
Well, and I
Yo,
wonder how many of these people really think that, or they just know that they've got a lot of very ignorant people who just want to hear
You hear
something that
that stuff.
confirms their bias,
yeah.
and they
Impossible.
play to that. And this is where I think if we taught a lot more about psychology and how our emotions and our brains work and how our brains trick us into
Yes.
bad decisions
Yes.
when we are little, it would be a lot harder to fool us because the more I've been spending ever since my son, he had his issues with autism, I had to learn a lot more about how the brain works so I
Hmm.
could be a better parent. Like I have to know a lot more about psychology and emotional well-being and mental health than vast majority of parents do because autistic kids and anyone neurodivergent struggle so much, anyone with mental health issues. So to be just to keep my head above water as a parent, I had to learn a lot. But there's so many professionals out there putting information out there for free on YouTube. These are people who've practiced, who've been deep in research, psychiatrists, psychologists, people with excellent, beautiful messages, and they're out there trying to educate us with both, tender love and tough love, like how we have to get better at knowing how our own brains work and our
I
emotions work.
agree. I agree. We're gonna bring Keith Jackson, but before we do,
Great.
right? I love that Keith's us. But Mark, before we do, I just wanted to mention in the beginning I had mentioned it's National Diabetes, Alzheimer's, Hospice, Native American Heritage, and National Home Caregivers Month. So I just wanted to get that out. I wrote it down, but I didn't get it all because I don't want to leave out anybody politically correct. politically correct here. But Mark, I love to hear Keith Jackson's voice, and he supports the show, and we support P-Funk Radio. So him and Christy Key Rollins, and we're gonna do a couple of drops. But you guys hang out. We're hanging out. We got a beautiful show today with Linda and Jen, and we're getting into some serious politics. On the other side, we're gonna come back and talk about the Latin vote, how that's swaying a lot, and also two morons, I believe, and it's my show, I can say that. Herschel Walker and Kanye West, we're going to talk about them too, because they stay in the cycle, Jack, and we can't get into politics without talking about them. So, Mark, run that for me, please, and y'all hang out for a second.
Hey, this is Keith Jackson with P-Funk Radio, inviting you to check out my brother Zach Robinson with Funk from the Front Seat. Saturdays, 12 noon on the East Coast, and 9 a.m. on the West Coast. It all happens on 9 on the Grind TV and also on YouTube. Great guest, great conversation each and every Saturday. That's Funk from the Front Seat with Zach Robinson on 9 on the Grind TV and YouTube. Check him out.
Keith is so cool.
Yes, he is. And so supportive.
Very charismatic.
He's very supportive of our musical endeavors. I love that guy.
Hey, it's Chrissy Key Rollins here with Holistic Restoration, inviting you to check out Zach Robinson with Funk in the Front Seat. He drops new episodes every Saturday at noon on the East Coast time, and replays are posted for whenever you miss a live stream. You can find him on 9 on the Grind TV and also on YouTube, and get ready for the funk because he brings it every week along with hot topics, amazing guests, and great conversations. Again, that's Zach Robinson with Funk from the Front Seat on 9 on the Grind TV and YouTube. Go check them out.
And also JTRP, I love you, Keith Jackson. Gabe Gonzalez on Wednesday nights, P-Funk Radio. Larry Funkster Jones, Another Point of View. Robin Circular P. And Philly Phil down in Texas. I know y'all are balling out, so good luck with your basketball squad this year. Bootsy and Patty Collins, of course, George and Carlin. HJ Entertainment, Kane and Jams. Tony Cam and the Funk All-Stars, which I'm a proud member of, as is Linda. Not Yet Funk Army. Oak City Music Collective down here, who books us. Afterglow 92416. Donna, I love you. Q&A Entertainment. Brooke Clagett, my Funk Angel. My art people that do my artwork that you see behind me, Patricia Dioria, Aquarius Rising Art, Curtis Wilcox, of course, and the amazing George DeFuncovinci, my main man and brother, Dr. Brookenstein up in Philly Dilly, DJ Cocolino over in Ireland and Italy. Thank you for spinning my stuff. The Funk Chronicles up in Ohio. If you haven't been, you need to go. Please support David Webb and the Funk Chronicles because, he does amazing things with all the funk acts that we grew up with and other acts that we grew up with, and he's making sure that they are not forgotten. Okay, let's get this guy out the way real fast. Kanye West. Who wants to go first?
Go, Linda. Go. I got a prayer for
feelings about Craig K. Kanye. He's a nut job. I can't believe that he's got so many people that give him a platform again, putting him on the air with all his insane ideas. It's embarrassing. I can't say anything else about that. He's an embarrassment.
Do you think he's really that much of a fool, or do you think he just likes to stir up the controversy?
I think he likes the controversy and having the platform, being on TV and getting
that makes him the money.
Yes.
Yep.
He needs to go home and sit here and play with his money because I just don't see why he's constantly getting a platform to talk this insanity that he talks all the time. It makes no sense.
There is a culture, though, and it is here in the United States. There's a strong culture of, he who dies with the most wins. It's like a tally board. And when people accruing ridiculous amounts of money, somebody's like, what if you won the $1 billion lottery we got here in North Carolina right now? It's like up to $1 billion or something insane like that. And I was like, I would give most of it away. I'm like, what human being on this earth needs that much money? Nobody.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
I guess you can shovel it into your coffin when you pass away because you're not going to give it away to anybody else that might need it,
Right. Hide it and then give everybody clues to try to find it. I don't know.
Yeah, but Jim, when you get that kind of money,
it's kind of like what controls the country and how we think and what we are exposed to.
Yeah.
But Jen, when you get that kind of money, then you go ahead and you buy Twitter, and then everybody's running away from Twitter and all of that because
Oh, we're
Elon
gonna get
Musk has
into
got
that
like
in a
$1
minute.
billion.
Well, you know, he had to go to Saudi Arabia to get some more money to do that. You know, it wasn't just his money involved in this purchase.
Most of it is borrowed. I think about
gave
30
him a
million
lot
is
of money to
borrowed.
help him get that thing done.
Though I
That's
think
amazing.
if it does tank, he can like do it out of his own money. Although he has like lost a whole bunch of his net worth, but you know, like when he has like that much money, it's just like we're getting people who are approaching trillionaire now. We don't just have billionaires; we get people approaching trillionaires, and then we have more and more people who can't even buy medication that they need to live, and it's how
It's
do you
crazy,
get people?
right?
Right.
And he's cleaning house at Twitter. He's firing a lot of the staff there. He's getting rid
I
of
heard
anybody
that.
that's not on his program.
I heard that. He sent them an
Yeah.
email. He said, "You'll know whether you have a job or not. Check the email." That's crazy.
Well, and they're violating the federal regulations of having to report and mass layoffs, which I believe, and y'all can correct me if I think it's more than 50 or more than 50 people. If you're laying off, you have to do a notification ahead of time. I can't remember.
Well, I
the
know
law.
the feds are looking into the purchase and trying to see if they can find some way to just counteract him. I doubt
they'll have
it
him on that. I mean, but the
if we
thing
can't
is,
get Trump in the orange jumpsuit, I don't think they're going to do much with Elon Musk with all his money.
Well, here's what's going to happen. That stuff just is mostly civil and just comes with a penalty of $sign that he can easily write a check for. And that's the problem with a lot of these penalties is once you are ridiculously rich enough, you can be like, cost of business. I make more money just doing it anyway. And you just write the check and you walk along. And so it fails to be a deterrent. Whereas in some countries, some of these penalties are based on a percentage rather than a flat number. So like if you're hit like half your worth for a penalty, you will think twice before you do it.
I mean, think about people like Steve Bannon getting a 4-month sentence and a $6,500 fine when he's built millions out of people. And he's also so intensely right wing and spouting all these conspiracy theories and stuff. That's the kind of spanking he gets. We talked about this last week. A person can get a 20-year sentence for selling drugs with no weapons involved. And he gets 4 months for being like an anti-democratic incendiary person, you know, inciting people to do all these things, giving them, go out there and shoot some folks or mess some people up because we need to win this by all means necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a scary thing. Jail. Oh, go ahead, Jen. No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I'm just like, there's people in jail for years for stealing a TV. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the system is definitely not set up for middle class America or even poor people. And this is one thing that bothers me about Herschel Walker, because Herschel Walker came from where you, I, Jen, Linda, Mark, we all came from the middle class. He wasn't poor. So he can say, well, he identifies, but he does not. He got a scholarship. He was an amazing athlete. So he came from that. Right. So I don't see how in the world he's turning his back on his state, knowing that if he would put his support behind that woman, you know what I'm saying, and not even be in politics, but just work it from the back end, like Oprah's doing. Oprah came out and said, yeah, I ain't going to get all into it, but I'm going to endorse this guy in Pennsylvania. You know what I'm saying? Because they know their name carries weight. Now, nobody's listening to Herschel. They just see him as a puppet. To do the bidding of the orange guy.
To rubber stamp anything the Republicans come across with, because that's going to be his job. And see, you know what's going to be awful is when Biden if the Republicans take over the Congress, once again, no bills are going to get passed. They're going to throw everything that he throws at them out the window. He's going to be probably a lame duck for the next 2 years of his presidency.
That's what it said, because they're already projected that we're going to lose the House. They already projected that. And the Senate race is going to be close.
Very close.
But they already projected we're going to lose the House because Arizona, Pennsylvania. I was just watching this yesterday. And I watch I watch CNN and I watch Fox, but then I also watch this other news station that's completely unbiased, and they just give you the facts, right? And I also watch BBC, but they're going to try to impeach Biden, which is the most insane thing And he even said yesterday, well, what have I done to be impeached?
Mm-hmm.
But they're
It's
just going to do
retaliation,
it.
and it's very obvious. You know, there's no other reason for that. They want to go because they're such Trumpers. They want to make sure that he gets the brunt of their anger at him being impeached 2 times, with every reason to be impeached. Although it didn't happen, you know, but he sure had enough. They had enough ammunition to take him out of office, and they just couldn't get the Republicans to go along with it. Once again,
it's a pure
you know,
us versus them. It's a pure us versus them mentality. And, you know, you talk about people voting or going in a direction that's against their best interests. I really think they don't think it's against their best interest. But I think a lot of times they are manipulated.
into
And
thinking that.
not everybody has achieved, you know, the enlightenment. I don't want to call it enlightenment because that seems like too, you know, high in the sky, but not everybody is thinking it through and thinking both sides, you know, because like I know both sides. I'm not a both sides as in person. Don't think I am, but I play devil's advocate. I do with myself because I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm not missing something important because a lot of people will say things when they mean something different. So, you know, a lot of these rhetorics and, you know, these phrases we throw out are, you know, because they're afraid to say how they really feel. And I've seen people manage to talk, you know, you see these folks, they go, journalists, and they find someone who, and they actually coax out of them what they're really upset about. And then they say, do you realize that actually the other side is on your side about that? Usually it's like a Trumper or something on the right. Do you realize that what you're saying is actually what the liberals are standing for you? And they don't, because they're so mired in the messages that we're the enemy, out to get them in some way. And
Well, the
that's
Republican
because
Party seems
people
to be so cultish now, and
it
there's so
is.
few of them that really are looking at things rationally that it's kind of hard to understand how they could be so entrenched in all this
To stay in power. It's
insanity.
manipulating people who are manipulable in order to stay in power. I wonder how many people at the top, how many people are doing that manipulating, really genuinely believe what they're saying. Because you'll see those 10 years ago, they said things differently. Back when that manipulated their base to vote for them. They want to stay in power and they want to keep themselves and their network and their friends in power, in money, getting richer, and just, you know, once they have that power, there's that, you know, the people who gravitate there, or, you know, the ones who are getting there and then manipulating,
expecting a little bit of it to drip off to them. You know, that, like I said, the power and money are what is running the country right now.
That's right. The runoff. That's right. That's right. That's right. See, corporate America, to me, and as I've gotten older, I've come to understand this. Now, I don't play the stock market, but I do have stocks, and I do have an invested interest in where we're going. I don't have a lot of money at all, period. I'm a broke musician, but a starving artist. But I said, okay, last year, you know, I was talking about it, and I recently got involved and said, okay, I'm going to put this away. I'm going to get somebody to kind of handle, you know, $150, $200 a month to kind of, you know, keep that. And see, they don't care, the powers that be, about you, me, Linda, Mark. They don't care about our money. Like Linda just said so eloquently, they're worried about, and Jen, you said this, that top 1.5% of money has to always make sure their buddies and their families get the same money. They run the same businesses. But to me, the country is set up as, how many countries we got? How many states? We got 50 states, right? 50 little individual corporations. Texas is going to do what's best for Texas. New York's going to do what's best for New York. This is why I said this last week, and I keep saying this. We have too many politicians. Too many. We don't need that many. The country used to run just fine without everybody being a politician. And me personally, maybe I'm old, I don't know. I preferred it that way when I didn't need to know everything. Of course, I wanted my rights. Of course, I want things to go right. I don't want to be shot because I'm black walking in the neighborhood. Those are obvious things. But I don't really need to know every little thing, because all it does is cause me stress. Like Linda.
Yes.
I'm stressed out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It is an information overload age.
Yes,
it is.
Yes. I mean, I got to the point where I couldn't sleep at night because I would watch MSNBC and there was so much information that was so negative and scary. I was, I had to stop watching news for a couple of weeks just to get my head back into a normal space. And I find myself almost at that point again right now because of this election. This election being so precarious right now and could go either way. I'm just praying that it doesn't, go too far right. But I just kind of see that it might happen, and the repercussions of that could be terrifying.
Yeah.
And Linda, you said it last week. You were like, people stayed at home because they were frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the statistics on voting, and so many people who stayed out when Trump got elected were people on the left. And it was because, well, I don't want to vote for Hillary. I'm just going to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's giving a vote to Trump. But I'm actually very heavily on Twitter, and I am in a lot of circles of people on the left who are so tired of feeling like their vote doesn't count, that they're staying at home.
Yes.
And I want to encourage them to vote, but I don't want to invalidate their feelings. They're genuine. Those frustrations are genuine. But at the same time, I'm like, but every person who decides to stay home, and not vote against this, wave of regression, that we're having in this country, is handing it over to them. And there was, I don't know how we can help the people who feel like it's pointless, because it's
I think
about feeling.
the main reason the way to do that is to have a dialogue. Let them see how crucial it is for them not to stay home. This particular election is so important that those who have gotten frustrated, like myself, I did vote, but I know a lot of people are, like you said, they're so fed up with how things are going. They don't want any part of it anymore. Those are the people we have to impress upon to please.
And it's a lot of young people. It's a lot of the younger people that feel that right now the protests are the only thing that get them any attention. But I'm like, but you're going to go ahead and protest, but also vote. Do both. Because if you only protest and you withhold your vote, you're going to give yourself an eternity of protesting, because the change is never going to happen. You need to both protest and vote, because the protest is the voice and the vote is the
power.
The currency of is your agency, your franchise.
That is the only way we have any control over how we're forced to live. That's the only way.
My son is one of those. He was just like, I'll vote if you tell me to. All right, if however long that takes, I'm going to bug him every year. Come vote with me. I'll come pick you up. I'll come vote with me. I'll fly across the country to help you vote. I will do it. Generation where the older ones, hey, let's do it. Let's be the elders to our younger people, and let's just go out there, knock on their door, and say, "Come on, I'll take you. Let's vote. I'll help you sign up. Come on, kid, you can do it." Let's be there for them emotionally too, and understand what they're going through, because they are going through unprecedented times, and you can see the emotional toll it's taken on them, because we have the highest rates ever of anxiety, depression, and suicide.
That's right.
Now amongst our young people.
This is why I get so angry with my people, our people. We all human beings, but Black people, minorities, Latin people, and that are eligible to vote in this country have completely lapped us when it comes to their vote counting. And I say that because there was a time when women couldn't vote. There was a time in this country when Black people couldn't vote. There was a time when women couldn't be in politics. I go back to my girl, Shirley Chisholm. God bless her. First one. There was a time when Black people couldn't even think about being a policeman or a fireman, let alone being a politician. Right?
Yeah.
So why do we want to not cast our vote and our ballot? Even if people think it means nothing, it means something to the people and shoulders we stand on. There were people, my father, I carry his NAACP card. He marched in the 60s, right? He was a minister. It's emotional for me to think about it, that if I didn't vote, I would feel like I'm hurting him.
Mm-hmm.
Like
and my slap in the face for all he's suffering.
Yes, for all that they've done. So again, if you're watching the show, you're going to go back and watch it. Midterms, the real election, presidential, whatever it is, you are obligated. You have a right as an American citizen. There are people, and I know Jen, you was telling the story off air, from other countries that never had a right to vote. Got shot if they spoke out against the country. So
just like what's going on in Russia and
exactly.
Venezuela,
exactly,
and other countries in South America, where
exactly.
the vote is still, where they can vote, and still whoever's in power is going to say, oh, I won again.
Yeah.
There's no recount.
And whenever
don't have any recourse but to swallow what I said and keep it moving.
Yep. And if you don't vote, like when it was Saddam Hussein, like if you didn't, they checked your ballot. If you didn't vote for Saddam, you got shot, you know? And so everybody's like, yes, stop, you know, don't kill me. And when these folks move into a country where where you really do have the freedom to vote as you please, it is like they're 100%, if not like almost like 99.9%, they register and they vote. You know, there's this saying, it's old but true, you don't know what you've got until it's gone.
That's right.
And I wonder if we've gotten too comfortable. It's like, well, I'll vote the next time. And it's like, what if a next time doesn't come because they've taken your vote?
Exactly. And that is a possibility with the
dictatorship,
way the intensity and extremism that we're seeing. That could be the next move. It's
a dictatorship coming.
Yes.
That's why we have to stop.
Adolf Hitler vibes from all of this stuff myself.
Yeah. It's a dictatorship. It really, really is. Because one thing dictators do throughout history is, of course, they gain the power of the military. And in our country, we have the greatest military in the world. So, like this fool tried to do before and use the military is like, nah, we stepping out of it, you know. But who knows this time what he's going to try to do? He may come back with a different plan. And martial law was declared during Black Lives Matter. Civilians walking around killing other civilians. We was already there. People got to wake up. We were already in it. We're in it now. That's why we have to make a stand. We have to vote. Like if I had to die to get my vote across, I would be willing to do it because I know people died for me. You know what I mean? Mr. Mark Lee, jump in there, bro.
I was going to jump in because, you know, the number one thing that dictators also do is they divide and conquer. And that's something that I've been seeing on a lot of ads lately is a lot of divide and conquer. If you look at some of the ads, even in our Asian community, you'll see that they are trying to pit the fact that there are Asians that are succeeding, but they are somehow being disadvantaged by affirmative action as a reason that they should vote Republican and all along those lines. If that isn't a divide and conquer tactic, I don't know what is, and all in that space. But we see that that's going on. We see that they try to divide the women vote between African-American women and other women as well. So there's all these attempts to divide. So that is definitely the strategy of a dictator and the strategy of what I'm seeing on a lot of the political divide and all in that space. So that's one of the things we have to be careful about and listen to the issues and actually try to make sense out of the issues. But I'm seeing them even try to divide rural and urban and things along those lines because they're going to try to make it seem like, you know, if you're voting this way, that you're going to hurt your farms. If you vote this way, you're going to hurt your city growth and all in that kind of space. So I'm seeing a lot of ads as I watch them that are very divisive, and they are very much about trying to divide the country and try to get you to vote, as I heard y'all saying earlier, against your own interests among a lot of folks. And that's the Asian vote, the Hispanic vote, and a number of other votes, because they will tell you that this is going to hurt you and a lot of things in that space. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think most people want to find somebody that's going to help them with their economy because we're all struggling and all along those lines. But that's not even hardly being talked about by either side of the political aisle. And that's what we really need to have conversations about.
And you know what is funny?
Let's not forget corporate America controls what we pay for things. So all they're thinking about is profit. They're not thinking about how people are not able to afford bread and milk and eggs or ground beef because it's so daggone expensive now. But they're filling up their bottom line, and that's the priority. They don't give a crap about the people that are trying to buy these things from them. Pricing it so high that it's hard to take care of your family. Not a good look.
Right. And you know, the Latin vote. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, that's okay. One of the reasons I think we do need to keep pushing to make sure everybody has health care and doesn't have to pay any more than, you know, let's say some percentage of your salary is the most you ever pay out of your pocket for any kind of health care ever. like the Medicare for All and things like that. Whatever we need to do is one of the things that I think would really boost our economy again. Like I was saying before, and I think Mark, I think I can't remember if you were here when I was saying it, is small and medium businesses getting, decentralizing from these uber powerful, corporations and getting, back into everyday people who, really care about and give back to their communities. Because they still live in them, that's their community, their business is still all the same place. And but one of the things that really stops a lot of people from doing it is how much your insurance costs and your out-of-pocket expenses. Like you could pay $3,000 a month to get all your different insurances, and you're still going to have like $10,000 out of pocket per year or something like that. So that's like, if it doesn't get canceled out from under you, it's like at least 50 grand a year just for that. The vast majority of people cannot afford that. So that's not a sustainable system. So I think that prevents entrepreneurship at that smaller level that would give people who have been shoved out of the system, marginalized, and didn't get to ride that wave up in the past because they were, pushed out of it, would give them that chance again. And in a fascinating and highly connected economy that has so much more opportunities. But there are these simple blockades that if we could get a few things in place would free people to really.
Yeah. And I was going to say, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention real quick, but I liked it better when the mob was running the country. And I'll get back to that in a minute. I did. I'll get back to that in a minute.
I need to hear this. I want to hear all about this.
I'm going to get back to that. But our Latin brothers and sisters are making a difference in this election. And the Republicans have convinced them, because a lot of our Latin brothers and sisters come from oppressed places. So the Republicans have convinced them that being a Democrat is socialism. And I swear that is the most idiotic ideal for somebody to believe that comes from a socialist country that now has a vote over here, but then somebody's telling you, oh, no. Don't vote for your own interests because it's going to be socialism. Mm-hmm. When in reality, Social Security, welfare is socialism.
Medicare.
We've always had it.
Those are the things they want. It's like they just don't want other people to have social
those things too.
We've always had it.
Social Security and Medicare.
Exactly. So any Republican that says, "Hey, I'm collecting Social Security," guess what? That's socialism, son. You know what I mean?
And
have you noticed though
about the vote? I didn't mean to cut you off, Jim, but I just
go ahead.
This thought. How can they be so against the voting that went on in 2020 when it's just the presidency? They're not questioning any of the congressional wins or the state wins. No question about those being okay, but just the presidency is in question. So if that was bad, how come you got in and you're okay with winning on your slate, but you're still questioning whether Biden is the true president? Then all those elections should have been questioned, and they're not.
Exactly. So
they've got, like you said, the cult, the hero worship, the cult. It's the cult leader, and for some reason they feel. I think there are people who have been disenfranchised and dispossessed who feels like he's speaking for them, but they don't realize that he's not, and that he'll throw them right under the bus the minute.
And he's done that. They don't see that. He's done it for 6 years.
I know.
Told everybody, if you support me and you get arrested, I will pay your lawyer fees and all the other stuff he's thrown out there and did not back it up. Doesn't anybody pay attention? Like I said, it's so cultish with them that it's unreasonable.
They don't see when unions
all this crap.
It is when unions ran this country. I grew up in that era. Jobs were plentiful. Didn't matter what you voted, Republican or Democrat. You had your health care, your dental, you paid your union dues out of your paycheck. Everything was dope, And because we kind of pushed that out the door, corporate America became new unions, but they only worked in their interests. When the mob ran the country, yes, they were soldiers, they killed, they did whatever. But basically, they made sure the ants, the worker bees, the class like us, we got ours. Mm-hmm. I remember my dad worked one job. He had a brand new car every couple of years. We went on vacations twice a year. He had a house. I had a house, grew up in a house with a big yard. He only worked one job. One. Mm-hmm. Now
people can't even do that with 2 jobs.
No, 3.
Or 3
and 4.
Lord.
Wow.
Mark.
Yeah, 5 jobs. But I was going to
There
say,
means
but
no sleep. Five jobs means you never
yeah.
sleep.
When was the last time you
You're
saw a
walking
cost of
around like a
living
zombie.
raise?
Yeah.
There is no cost of living raise.
That's what I'm saying. There's not been one in years. That's why there's the fight for 15, where they're trying to get folks that are working in fast food and a raise to get $15 or $20. That's not even going to really cover your cost of living, if we're being perfectly honest, and all in that
Peanuts.
space.
Right.
So even a teacher's salary is not enough.
Dude, I was
Because
making
They're
more
fighting
money
that.
when I was a teenager until I got into
Yeah.
healthcare. As a teenager,
Victor
I was making a good living.
Carol said it was on when she got here.
You know,
Yeah, me
Yep.
too.
and
It need to be
we
on. Okay, thank you.
talked about this a minute ago about how we're trying to, and Jen, you mentioned this, the psychology, and Linda, you talked about this as well, of where we are in this country. We have to figure out a way to get it into the school system, into our working class, and into everything we do. Now, of course, we know the music game, Linda and I, and how the powers that be have screwed that up so bad. You know, they put out certain music. Only black rappers talk about killing each other and defaming women. You don't see that with any other nationality when it comes to that rap game. You don't see it. That's the powers that be, hard at work Illuminati. So if you're artists out there, pay attention to that shit. All right?
Mhm.
We are the only ones that do that. And it gets on the radio all the time.
Yep.
But if somebody puts out something positive, you have to damn near jump off the Empire State Building just to get it heard.
recognized. Yes.
So right
As
there,
a,
powers that be.
Mhm.
as a community, though, as the people, we can right now, we can choose to support the positive artists and reject the negative, and
Amen.
force
The worst
the
thing
money
about it is
to
the
flow that
children
way.
that are watching this, and they're getting groomed into that same kind of mindset
Yeah.
and they fantasize about, walking around with all the bling and having a girl on each arm and all the things that are glorified in the rap music. And these
Mhm.
little kids are watching it and growing up thinking that this is how they're supposed to live.
And
I
it's
don't need
also
school.
on the
I just need a good
Instagram
beat.
life, too. I'm sorry, Linda.
I said they don't feel like they have to go to school. They all they have to do is find me a good beat, get on the TV, and I'm going to have all the money and power and girls and cars and everything that I need. This is how, like I say, forget school. Who goes to college anymore? I don't need to go to college. I can just jump out of high school and get busy and make money. And all the little kids that are watching these videos on MTV and all the other platforms are, they're looking at this with the big eyes like, oh gosh, look at how he's living. I want to do that too. That's the kind of messages they're getting.
And it's coming
Women are
on
not
like
to be respected. They're supposed to be humping on my leg or something, that kind of stuff.
right. Well, I think you just mentioned like that we changed what the word respect means. It's more
Mhm.
like I'm feared, not I am admired for my good choices as a human being. I'm feared. And that's a different kind of respect. That's not real respect. It's, be respected because you did what was right even when it did not benefit you. And then also at the Instagram life, everything has to be so perfect, and then we got a lot of kids who think if their life isn't, and it's the same thing that
Reflecting on the
consumerism,
videos and
that
stuff.
having
Yeah.
all that money and all that, it's creeping into every single facet of our
Aspect.
life, that you have
Yes.
to have that magazine, Instagram, perfect
Yep.
life. And we've stopped like being happy and content and joyful about just everyday
Exactly.
life.
And in neighborhoods where there's gang activity, the gang guys are admired by the little kids because once again they see that they have the power and control of their neighborhood where they're living. And so they're admiring them and wish, gee, I want to be able to walk down the street and people fear me too. I can walk without getting jumped on or getting my lunch money stolen or my
That's
jewelry
right.
taken
We
off
have
my
to make it
body or
safe.
something. I want to be a soldier because they get respect. That's the kind of respect that I see the young people admiring and following.
Yeah.
And
We
some
I
of that, I
think
think, is they don't feel safe. And
that's
so
right.
if these are the only people that protect
Only
them,
way to
and
be safe is to join up.
as
Yeah.
a society, we failed because we have failed to protect those kids and give them a real and genuine way out of that situation rather than, and I don't like putting it all on the parents because the parents are probably just barely trying to feed their kids and clothe them and things
When you
like
can't
that.
even send your child to the Boy Scout camp without him getting assaulted or sexually assaulted,
Exactly.
the YMCA's, you don't see them. They're not as popular as in boys clubs and girls clubs, not as popular anymore. They're not getting the kind of, when we were kids, those were places we could go to be safe and
Safe.
have fun. I don't see that being a interest anymore.
And you bring up an interesting point. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. You're hanging out on Funk from the Front Seat, 9 on the Grind TV. Two very, very, very intelligent women, Linda Scheider, Jen Vander Putten, both queens in their own respect. This is worldwide because we just saw what happened in Korea. All of those people on Halloween jammed in there for no other reason than just to be seen. There was no other reason for it. They've had those parties before over there, but for some reason, I don't know if it's Satan, and I don't want to say Satan, the guy with the horns. I just mean that, like Jen said, social media, I got to be in this. If
Gotta
I'm
be
not
on
in
the
it, I'm not happy. We've
gotta
been
be on the
tricked. We've been
scene.
duped. We've been hoodwinked. Be happy within your own self. I follow a lot of Sadhguru. Sadhguru teaches me, and he's out there for everybody else. Happiness
Sadhguru is
starts
so
here.
much wisdom.
And thank you, Janice, for that. Happiness starts here. Okay. So all those people that jammed in there that day, they didn't go there with the intent to step on other people or be killed themselves. They went for one reason. This is going to be an event. I got to be
It's
in
a
it.
happening.
See,
It's a
now that's
happening.
where
Gotta be on the
it's
scene.
global, not just here in the United States. So, Jen, if you could give this magic potion and sprinkle it into everybody about understanding their own psychology, like how are we going to do this, Linda? How are we going to, the three of us, sit here and then we go out into the world today, go about our lives? What can I tell somebody when I go today, drive Uber? Like, don't do that. Please, don't do that.
Use positive messages. We have a brain that is built for positive instead of negative messages. This is one of the things I've learned, that when you tell somebody don't do something, you shut them down more and more. So I had to learn that with my younger son, because I was giving him a lot of don't do that, don't do that, don't do that in reaction to his behaviors, rather than understanding where his behavior was coming from. Because when behavior is communication, especially in children, but even in adults. He was trying to communicate and he was not old enough to articulate correctly because he didn't understand his own emotion. He didn't have the vocabulary. He didn't have the adult type thought processes. So one of the things I had to help him figure out was how to understand how he was feeling. I think a lot of people don't understand that they are lacking self-love. They may know, oh yeah, I have a self-esteem issue, but where do you find that self-love? That is a tough journey. I think as the adults now with the younger generation, I think if just one kid in your life, you help them achieve that self-love, it is an investment that will yield dividends and interest as it goes forward. I think probably we're capable of doing at least two or three, making that much of a difference. And so instead of trying to do these big solutions where we do the whole, like we're trying to fix the whole entire everything. I think, as individuals like we are, Lightbringers, or whatever you want to call yourself, is focus on a couple people that you have in your life that you can reach. Sit back, listen, and ask them how they feel. That's how I got to my son. And he was so angry, and because he was being hurt at his school. But I was listening to the school thinking that's the authority, that's good guys, and I wasn't listening to him. And so it started with me sitting down and going, how do you feel about that? What do you think? And then seeking first to understand and then be understood, and come out with a positive message instead of don't talk out of turn today. I would say I would focus on the things he did do well, and I would say You know, I have a feeling this is going to be a great day. You're going to do your best to take your turn. You're going to. How about that last week when you did that really great thing? You know, they say for every negative message, you need 3 positive just to be at even,
Mhm.
which means you need a lot more positive to get someone to lift them up. You know, right? Because you're trying to lift each other up. So
My
I
little
think with what.
granddaughter just turned 7, and I make a point of every day sending her to school with the hearts and kisses and telling
Oh,
her this is going to be a great day. Come home and tell me how good you did in school. I try, to give her like this, like you're a beautiful black woman, and she's kind of like
Mhm.
going for that. She's like, Grandma, black is beautiful, isn't it? And I said, yes. And look in the mirror and see how beautiful you are. I give her a positive as much as possible because, especially for women in this world, we need all that. We go out into this
Mhm.
world, and we're expecting to succeed, and we know we're attractive if we are, and we think that we're going to go out there and own the world. And sometimes we get beat down to the point where we lose all our self confidence. We become insecure and feel like we're supposed to be hurt or damaged because we don't deserve anything better. Women get
Mhm.
such a awakening when they become adults about how the world
Mhm.
respects us or doesn't respect us or how it treats us. We have to
Mhm.
start them very young and give them like, you're strong, you're good, you can do this.
Especially
Positive
the black, like you
reinforcement
said,
as
black
much as
girls,
possible.
because that in and I only learned what colorism was through Mia. Mia was on your show, Zach. That's my BFF,
Uh-huh.
and
oh, Mia.
she,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's my BFF. She, I didn't even hear the term before. That's how, like, the ignorance is just like people don't realize like how little information is like out there for people who don't live in that space, and that's one of the things that um you know uh, being out on social media and listening to people talk about, like Linda, when you were telling about your experiences, that's how I learn, what's really going on out there. When it's not just because I don't see it. Like I tell people, just because you didn't see those staff people being cruel to my son doesn't mean those staff people weren't doing it. It's just these guys are real good at doing
Well,
it when
they
they
have to
know that
cover their butts. They can't
they
have people
do.
going to the school board like I told you to do and saying that my
Hmm.
son is being assaulted at school, because then they have to come into and get called on the carpet. They're trying to cover their butts and keep their paychecks coming in. So they're going to
Yep.
like soft pedal anything that's going to any kind of negativity coming their way to save the big picture.
The institution protects itself for its own sake rather
Let
than
me
Exactly.
for
ask you a
who it's supposed
question.
to
Do
serve.
you think? Do you guys think the government, Big Brother, should just nationalize our schools over here? Not private, public.
I think it would help. I think the state by state thing is the states' rights things is starting to show, if not nationalize it completely, at least start coming up with a national set of rules
A
Yes.
that
program.
are inviolable, and with better enforcement. So yes, there's the IDEA law, and I know a lot about it because I actually sued the school. I tried. We could do a whole show on how ridiculous that system is, especially in North Carolina, because we are one of the few what they call well, I won't get into it now, but we're only one of 2 states that has the what they call the 2-part system, but it's under
We'll
the
have a
IDEA
show on
law.
that too. We're
We
gonna do
will,
one.
But
because
in
what people
Maryland,
do,
they have this thing where especially in high school, these kids are in these little trailer things, and they're all cramped up
yeah.
like this. And my son, my youngest son, like I told you last week, I had to go to school and sit with him, and that didn't help because the school, this kids were so rambunctious, I couldn't hear myself think, and they weren't listening to anybody but themselves. When he got to high school, he was missing school for 3 weeks. I'm giving him lunch money, watching him get on the bus, thinking he's going to school. He's hanging out with some basketball players that he knew, like Jawan Howard, and I forget the other guy's name. They had a townhouse not too far where he lived, and a girl that they knew was taking my son over there to hang out with these grown guys, grown ass men. He was missing so much school. When I finally got told about it, they put him out of school. I said, he's been out of school for how many weeks, and you didn't bother to even call me and tell me he wasn't showing up? But then you're
Wow.
just going to throw him out? I was furious, but there was nothing I could do. He had to get
And
his
there's laws. There's laws that supposedly protect us. The IDA law was one of them. But the problem isn't the law, it's the enforcement of the law. And we see this with the cops, right? There are laws that say they're not supposed to use excessive force. How often is that actually enforced? When they use excessive force, somehow the judicial system always manages to land on their side. The same thing is happening in our schools, especially with children who, it's particularly pronounced with children with autism, but there are others, children with Down syndrome. You watch the nonverbal ones are the ones that hurt the most because they know they can't tell mom and dad what's going on.
Yeah. My personal opinion about the school thing. Now, I got a daughter. I love you, Kayla. Love you, Maya. Maya's in high school now. She's a freshman. And then I got a freshman in college, Kayla, and I'm proud of you. She's at Appalachian State. But my thing has always been this. I always realized once they started taking basic skills out of schools, home economics, auto shop, wood shop, plumbing. We used to have access to all of that stuff, and it gave us life skills. But
because
now what
everybody
Linda
can't get
just
into college
mentioned,
or afford it, but you have to be able to survive.
and it was for free. Instruments were for free. Football pads were for free. We never had to pay for a thing. But what Linda just said made me think about something. Okay, these kids are in trailers. Why can't we go to a full school year system like the rest of the world?
Like the rest
There is so much technology out now, and our kids are so far behind. We don't need to just send our kids to school for 8 months. I'm going to say this like a parent. Y'all need to have your asses in school 12 months a year.
And probably more frequent breaks in between, because what happens is they get burned out. Have more frequent breaks.
More breaks. But this way, you don't have to, as a teacher, cram so much stuff in, knowing you only got 8 months to do it. You can actually teach kids because I used to teach at the School of Rock, right? It wasn't, history or math, but I taught music, right? I was a very good teacher. And my thing is, if you stretch the school system out 11 months and a half, 12 months, when your kid comes to school, they know, okay, this is just all I'm going to do. This is my job, and we need to get back to that. My father made sure I understood he was the father. He was the parent. I did what he said. He paid all my expenses. I had one job to do: go to school.
Go to school. Yeah.
That was my job. That was my job.
That's what we tell our kids. That's your job. That's your one job. Do it well, and you will be fine.
And I got $7 every week as an allowance for taking my ass to school. And I was happy because I knew if I screwed up, I wasn't going to get that $7.
Yeah.
I was incentivized. Trust me. I had incentives.
Thinking if I wasn't going to school correctly and stuff. Although I did kind of cut and see my senior year, I was so bored. I cut about 7 days and was hanging out with one of my friends. My mother didn't even know because I was smart enough to know how to fix my report card. That's before everything was
back when you could do it.
I could see what was up. I could fix it and change it so that she didn't notice what was going on. But she never found out that I was doing that. But
Jen, Linda, and Zach, isn't part of the problem that, and I think I brought up the last week when we did the show, that folks are teaching too much to the test, and they're also teaching we go right to work.
And there's too much paperwork.
Yeah, there's too much
paperwork because most of the teachers are not, the head teachers in the classroom are not teaching, their assistants are teaching because the head teacher is the only one who's allowed to fill out a lot of the paperwork. Right. I'm absolutely for reducing the paperwork, though a lot of it got there because, like we talked about, the institution protecting itself for its own sake. When parents or communities came with legitimate gripes, they would just, stonewall the community, stonewall those parents. And I think that's where a lot of the animosity between schools and parents has come from, because parents used to be very supportive. So I was always very supportive of school until they absolutely betrayed me with my son. And then I became like paranoid about it. And then, I know, and I've, again, I've evolved, I've continued to evolve. And I know that most teachers and most school staff aren't like that, except in the administration is a big part of the problem. But we do have to reduce that paperwork. We do have to reduce the classroom sizes. I am absolutely with teachers on that. The problem is teachers, they do the Red for Ed and they march for more money because the unions tell them to. Those unions are ones that those are unions who have stopped representing the people they're supposed to represent. They're not representing the teachers very well anymore either, and they're not doing any good for the schools. They're keeping themselves wealthy, and them and the administrations are patting each other on the back because I've got several studies that show, like you take Illinois, for example, you can take several states, it's like a state by state study, how much more money. We talk about schools are getting less money. It's actually not true. They're getting more money. The problem is the money's going mostly to the administration.
Going to the wrong places.
You see the line, teachers and students are a line on the graph and it's almost flat. And then you see the administration costs. And then people say, well, that's because of all the regulations, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, there's a little bit of that, but there's also a bit of the kind of inherent corruption that's going on in the school administration because they are each their own little fiefdom. I went, I had a friend who had a similar problem I was having in the school. She went to the state. And I mean, legitimately, like she actually had a little bit of proof that they were doing some abuse to her child. And the state told her, well, we can't do anything about it. She's like, you're the state. This is a local school. Do you not have authority? No, we can't really do anything until we get 10 or 12 more parents saying the same thing. And those schools know it. And I know they play the numbers too with that. But it's how do you not have control over the schools in your own state? That's a cop-out, that's just...
And because of this that we're all talking about on this panel is because 280,000 teachers quit last year. That's the number. Look it up if y'all don't believe me out there watching this show. Y'all look at it.
When you're going to school trying to teach and you've got people doing drugs in school, attacking you, assaulting the other students, I wouldn't feel safe teaching right now either because they don't have any kind of backup system to keep these kids in their seats and keep them from like overpowering the teachers, which I saw for myself. It's like, what do you do?
And the smaller class sizes, I think, would help.
You need to
but
do.
the other thing that happened was that when the pandemic happened, a lot of teachers and a lot of society wasn't prepared for the technology that they needed and all in that space because you did need a certain type of technology and all of that ways. And there were certain folks that were ready for it. I had friends of mine that were already teaching online, either for their colleges or for high schools that were in that space. But a lot of folks were not prepared, and a lot of the kids weren't prepared either, even though they have their devices. They're not always on their devices for educational purposes. So there's a whole different kind of infrastructure that you need for that.
This is why
high school kids, especially, were sitting instead of doing their work. We're sitting there playing video games.
Yeah, this is why we need to break the system
looking
down
over their shoulder. So what are they going to do? They're going to play because that's what kids do.
And for I'm a part-time, I do my part-time thing. I can afford that. We used to have two software engineers. My husband's also a software engineer, and those are good salaries. We had two software engineer salaries. And so we were, we had no money problems back then. And then I actually got laid off. Well, I had the choice to stay in a different job or take a package. I took a package and started my own company. And that was the time in life when my youngest son needed me most. So things happen for a reason sometimes. But I had those resources, that privilege to be there when it hit, to be the parent that could watch over his shoulder because it was only working part. I could control my hours as a business owner, and I could take on only what projects I wanted to because I wasn't, not all business owners can do that, but like I could, the kind of business I do. That was a great privilege. There's so many families who fell through the cracks into poverty because they had nowhere for their children to be, and they don't get paid if they don't go to work. And so we failed absolutely, like everybody, just about those who didn't have.
And that's why I think the pandemic was a perfect time for us to reset and reboot, because again, I never knew. I knew about schools being all year round, but I didn't see the quality in it. I was raised like, hey, you go to school, June, you get out, you have screwed up. But when we are at a point now where we're like in the mid 15s to the lower or higher 20s across the board in everything. The United States used to be leading in everything. Now we're not even in the top 10 in anything.
I can tell you that some of that actually comes from the way we're teaching. So, and that goes back to that corruption, because a lot of these big companies have sold us on snake oil. And so the way we teach reading and the way we teach math right now, and But I'm one of the people that's like evidence-based teaching, which if you
Yeah.
look at it, actually kind of goes back to the old-fashioned kind of teaching that all of us are, I think, of an age that we grew up with a more
Yeah.
old-fashioned teaching.
No, but Jen, along those same lines, don't you feel that, and I've actually got quite a few friends, I think all four of us in one way or another, because even musicians are entrepreneurs in one sense, and I don't know that enough is being taught to prepare people for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
I mean, there's no fiscal management, there's no a lot of the other lessons that you need to learn. I'm sure that there's things even
Do
as
you
a
guys
software
remember when we
engineer
had
that
junior
you didn't learn.
achievement? Do you remember junior achievement?
Yeah.
That's exactly that, where you started your own little business and
Right.
came up with a product and sold it.
Right.
That was so
Yep.
cool to do that in high school. You know,
Yep.
we got really pumped, and I don't even think that exists anymore.
It doesn't. It doesn't. You know, Mark is a perfect example. This gentleman, besides everything else he does, he works in that system with these tests. And Mark, you can elaborate, but I'm gonna set it up for you. But when we're teaching to the test, I remember my youngest daughter came home when I was still married, gave me this math stuff, and I instantly gave it to my wife at the time and said, I don't understand this at all. We used to know our multiplication. 2 times 2 is 4. Simple as that. We had to learn all of that stuff. My youngest daughter, her whole generation doesn't write in cursive.
Mm-mm.
They don't know how to do script.
They don't teach it. They
don't
don't
teach
have
it.
time for it
Don't teach
anymore.
cursive.
I have a somewhat controversial thing about the test. I mean, I'm all for, like, we're teaching the test. We need to get rid of that. I think a lot of educators don't like me when I say all you need to do is have an end of the year survey and ask the parents how they feel things are going for their kid. That's all. That's because the reason they're doing the testing thing was the No Child Left Behind. It was the whole notion of, like, we have to have accountability. And there were a lot of schools that were, absolutely phoning it in. And, that's not every school. I don't know what percentage. It might be a small percent, but it was enough that there was enough of an outcry from parents in the country. But what they did is they just added more and more paperwork, testing. And we're testing them so young now that we're actually causing mental illness. My son's psychiatrist said that ever since the EOG started in North Carolina, she saw a tripling of anxiety and depression in children under the high school age. Tripling. Wow. And the age is going down for how young they are when they start to be suicidal. It is directly correlated to
they said I just read somewhere that they said that that's one of the biggest epidemics we have right now is the epidemic of mental health.
It is. We are pushing these kids too hard, and we don't need to. And there's too much paperwork, too much testing. And I would be fine if they just gave me a survey at the end of the year. Honestly, this is kind of how the private school works with it. They ask us as parents, how do you feel your kid is doing? And that's all that needs to be, literally a 5-minute conversation. And then, but I have to be taken seriously by the other side instead of, because what happened to me in John's previous school, it was like, well, you must be doing something wrong, Mrs. Vanderput. And I'm like, I want to work together on this, but they didn't want to hear it. They just wanted to put it on me. And the fact that when my kid left that school and went just to a different place, and within a few months was starting to thrive, speaks volumes.
Yeah. Linda, I wanted to ask you something. Remember detention? Like the kids that was unruly in class? Yeah. They didn't even stay in the class and disrupt it. Spitballing, whatever you did as a kid back then, there was a special room for your ass.
Yeah.
You went after school, either you got sent to the principal's office, but then after school, you had to stay in a room, detention.
But Zach,
I went to practice school and they didn't even do detention. They just beat you behind.
No, but Zach, I got a question for you.
With a hand mark on your face or something, those nuns did not play.
No, but I got a question for both you and Linda, because I got a quick question for you. I hear what you're saying. Part of the thing about detention was that if you were in detention, everybody knew you went to detention. So they knew that you went to detention, and you were, I won't say shunned, but you were definitely, folks knew that you were the bad kid and you were getting harassed and beat about
embarrassed.
That.
It was an embarrassment.
So
it wasn't an honor. Like, we're going home and look at you sitting there looking stupid.
Right. So like I said, so there was a level of peer pressure that was going on with that. There is still detention now, but they send the detention kids off to their own school. That to me sounds wrong because you don't have that same kind of pressure.
Yeah, because they're all together to screw up. See, exactly. We had in our detention, they had this machine that cleaned the erasers. So you had to go in every classroom,
Got a job
get
to
the
do.
erasers, and a dust be flying in your face and shit. See, you had to do janitorial work.
Right.
In my school, they didn't play. Detention, you worked. You cleaned the boards, and then you would psychologically think, I can't go out and play
I don't
football.
want to do this anymore.
I'm not screwing up. I'm not going to do it.
But I have a fly to dip into that ointment because this happens a lot to neurodivergent children where the school fails or refuses to identify them for the services they need, either 504 or IEP, and just sticks them in detention and all the time. And those kids get worse
That's
and
right.
worse
That's
and
right.
worse.
Because
That's right.
everybody in there is trying to outdo each other with the badness.
Yeah.
We also
But
used to
Jen,
have to
along
write
those same lines,
punishments
that's what
in Catholic
that's
school.
what
We
happens
had
with
to say,
Ritalin.
I
Because,
will
like I
not
said,
talk in school for 500, 500 times.
Mhm.
We got smacked around, and we used to get these things where you had to write, I will not talk in class 500 times, 1,000 times. I got a lot of those because I was a cut up. I got bored too easy, and I would always disrupt. I got tired of putting my hand up, and when they stopped letting me talk, I just started messing around with everybody else. I was always in trouble.
But kids with ADHD and autism, their acting out is often the only way they can communicate that they are having problems that are very legitimate that we as adults need to solve.
Yes.
There's a Dr. Green something. It's called livesinthebalance.org, I believe. And I encourage everybody to go read it because in the conversation, kids like mine do get forgotten, and that our kids aren't getting identified and recognized, and a lot of sometimes the parents have the power, but sometimes we don't, and especially with kids with autism, for some reason there's this desire to peg them as just bad kids instead of giving them the service,
push them aside,
and then just push them aside, and it often, more often than not, results in those children committing suicide.
But Jen, along those same lines, and I just wanted your thoughts about this is, I get it. I do know people, even in my own family, that have different parts of the spectrum and all along those kind of lines. But I was just wondering, don't you think that sometimes some kids that are getting diagnosed that way aren't necessarily fitting in that spectrum? They're just what I consider kids, which is hyper, and then they get automatically the medicines, even though they may not need them. They're just being kids. They're being hyper kids, which is what kids do in general.
Absolutely. So there's two sides of the coin that I advocate for in this space, in the space of special education or whatever you want to call it, because 504 is an IEP. Special education is usually IEP, but there's this thing called a 504, and it gets complicated. But in this general arena, there are two phenomenons that happen. One is that the kid who really does need the help, often they refuse to diagnose because the school would have to admit, a lot of times it's the kid they waited too long and they'd have to admit that they messed up, and they don't want to admit that they messed up. That's what happened to my son. And so they wanted to find every excuse in the book. They violated the law for like 7 years straight, over and over. And then there's the kids that they just want to try to get them put into another classroom. Because you can do separate classrooms with IEPs. You're allowed to place them in a separate classroom, though you're supposed to do the least restrictive environment, but that doesn't get honored very well. It's hard to enforce. Or the school knows that they've failed that child for some time, whether it's in the arena of discipline or getting them the help they need. Like, some kids will act out because they're not understanding the material. And they're not getting the help they need, and so they just become a rebel in the system, right? And when you get down to middle school and high school, and this thing has compounded over the years, and this kid is just checked out, and they're just acting up all the time. So, somewhere around that middle school or even earlier, they start falsely identifying these kids just to get them shoved into those special classrooms so they can get them out of the way. Yeah, and that happens disproportionately to Black children too. Statistics are clear on that.
But how much testing do they actually do and everything? Because one of the things that I know, and I've mentioned it to Zach, I'm not speaking out of school here, or speaking out of my own school and everything, but I actually have dysgraphia, which is like a form of dyslexia. It means if Zach tells me to go left, it might take me a little minute to figure out which way is left and which way is right. But it wasn't diagnosed until I was well into my late 20s or early 30s. So I actually got through the entire education system because I did get a college degree.
My
with
oldest
nobody
son
paying
has
attention to it
dysgraphia.
at all.
Yeah, I'm dyslexic,
Well,
and they couldn't figure out why I couldn't read or read
yeah.
music and read all this stuff. And then they finally said, "Oh, he's a slow reader." But back then, that's what they used to call it. But see,
Right.
I didn't know what dyslexic meant until I grew up, like you, Mark, and there was a word for it. And I was like, well, that's why I always reverse certain letters.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
certain things look spelled right to me, but then they're not. So, of course, we learn more as we grow, as Jen
Right.
said, as Linda said. But
I
we're
think
going
there
to
was more
stop
room
here only because
Oh, okay.
I'm good. No, I'm going to give you guys the last word, but I just want to say this has been an amazing part 2 of this conversation. Mark, Jen, Linda, you guys are amazing. Hopefully, somebody's watching this or will watch it and get what we're saying to be like, hey, give it a shot. Love and kindness. Let's understand the electoral process. Let's not poo-poo this election. All right? Because if you don't like something that's going on and you do not vote, you do not have the right to complain.
Right.
That's true. Amen to
You
that.
do not have the right to complain. And I'm going to end with a statement. Like we cut out a few segments, but I read somewhere where somebody wrote, they don't hate the people who hate. The gentleman said, I just hate the feeling because I know how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to leave y'all with that thought. You know, if somebody discriminates against you, right? You know how that feels person to person. It's a personal thing. Whether you're a woman, whether you have a child that's on a spectrum, whether, you know, Linda, you were harassed as a job, whether Mark, somebody, me, whatever, right? We got to start thinking, okay, we know how that feels. So therefore, we should not do it to other people.
Exactly.
And that was his point. And I'm going to leave y'all with that thought. It's been a great show. Funk from the front seat. You guys are amazing. Linda and Jen, we're going to give you the full screen and we're going to give you guys the last word. I don't really mind who goes first. Mark and I are going to jump off for a minute and we're going to come back and end this show.
Okay. Go ahead, Jen. You're sitting on the top echelon right
Okay.
there. So go for it.
All right, and I remembered for Zach that this is, I think it's tonight when our clocks go back, right?
Back.
Fall back and spring ahead. So I think it's tonight when they
Thank you.
change.
Thank you.
I
Thank
got
you. Yes.
guys.
Push the clocks back.
That it happened.
See, I knew I would forget. Thank you.
So, I'll just reiterate what I said before. It can be hard, but sometimes we need to seek first to understand and then be understood. So try to give people the space to feel vulnerable about, how they feel, even if they are an enemy or you perceive them as an enemy, because a lot of times we find out the people we perceive as enemies are actually in agreement with us and a lot more than they are in disagreement with us. So just give people the space, listen, and then speak your own mind and always listen with love.
Okay. I find that if we have empathy, we can kind of understand what somewhere else is coming from. We might not agree with their politics or their thinking, but through dialogue, we can possibly change their minds, or they can change ours. Maybe we're wrong. We can't always be correct 100% either, but through talking and dialogue, we find that we probably have more in common than we thought. And if anybody doesn't realize how important it is to vote this particular year, they're not paying attention. I hope that you look at the issues, look at the candidates, and give them an honest checking out to make sure that you're voting for something that's going to help this country to survive. Because right now it's on the borderline and it could drop at any moment. It's very crucial this year that we have to put aside our personal differences or our lack of enthusiasm and go for it and make sure that this country can maintain some kind of balance, because it's really out of balance right now. Education system we spoke about needs a lot of tweaking, and I hope that people get more interested in maybe going to the PTA meetings and the school board if they have a problem and try to fix it. But for that, you need numbers. One person going in is just going to be somebody complaining. If you have, like you said, 12 parents in there at the same time with the same issue, maybe they'll get some attention that way. I just hope that we figure out a way to live together and have some kind of peace and tranquility, because we definitely need it now, more so than ever that I remember. Except during the 60s when we were trying to get voting rights and all the things that were going on. the negative stuff going on in the country at the time. It's almost at that point again. Very close. It could teeter and balance. The balance could be lifted and flipped on a dime. Nice talking with you, Jen.
Nice talking with you, Linda.
You guys have been
Pleasure.
amazing. Thank everybody for watching Funk from the Front Seat. We get ready to get out of here. Don't forget, every Saturday, 12 o'clock, we're going to be here doing our thing. We're definitely going to have Linda back and Jen back, and ask Jen to bring some of her friends too, because we want to talk to them about stuff. Remember, peace, love, and harmony. And let's go home.
North Carolina, you've been amazing. Virginia. South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, we love you. We need justice for everybody. You got that? Canada, Jersey, Detroit, Ohio. What's up, Brenda? What's up, Booster Patty? I love y'all. Chocolate City, DC, we got you. Baltimore, B-Ball. We need justice, y'all. New Jersey, you heard? New York City, Bayshore, Long Island, I got you. We need justice, y'all. California, we got you. Arizona, Nevada. New Orleans, we got you. Florida, I got you. Utah, North and South Dakota, Wyoming, Tennessee, I got you. Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, I got you. Hawaii, I got you. Samoan, doing the Humpty Hump. Tokyo, Japan, I got you. Russia, we got you. Ukraine, we got you. Ireland, Elizabeth, I got you. Carmen in Australia, thank you for watching. I got you. Justice. Justice. Love each other today. Africa, we got you. Egypt. Dubai, I'll be over there soon. India, I got you. Alaska, you out there? Is somebody watching in Alaska? Hey, DJ Cocolito, thank you for your support. Brazil, my man Kato down there in Brazil, I got you, bro. Thanks for the email, I love you. So, from the front seat, 9 on the Grind TV. We love y'all out there. Remember, take care of each other, love each other, and make sure you approach life with a still mind, a kind heart, and just love each other, man. This one, that one, the other one, it don't really matter. We all are beautiful. Peace. Love you. Let's get out of here, Mark.
See you guys.
Out of here. Be great. This end broadcast.
Peace and love.
Woo. Good show, Mark.